The Peyton County Courthouse. The preliminary hearing continues. The prosecution seeks to prove that a young woman named Ann Howard died a violent death at the hands of Lee Weber. Today, District Attorney John Fowler finds himself locked in a struggle with defense counsel Stephen Cord over the testimony of the late Miss Howard's fiancé, Dr. Michael Rossi.
When was the last time you saw Ann Howard alive?
It was the morning of her death. She came to my office at the hospital.
And what was discussed that morning?
She told me she had found some papers in her father's trunk. Papers that proved that you and she were brother and sister.
Let the record show that the witness referred to myself, Stephen Cord. And what was your reaction to her statement?
I was surprised. I asked her not to do anything about it till we had a chance to talk it over.
And she agreed?
Yes.
And that was the last time you saw her alive?
Yes.
Was that the last time you talked to her before she died?
No, I talked to her on the phone later that afternoon.
Did she sound happy?
Happy?
Yes.
No.
Well, how did she sound, Doctor?
Well, she sounded all right.
Well, you previously testified that she talked to you on the phone from your beach cottage. What was she doing there?
Waiting for me.
Well, that was quite some time after she finished work at the bookstore, right?
Yes.
More than an hour?
I suppose so.
Well, where had she been from the time she left the bookstore till the time she arrived at your house?
I don't know. She said she'd been on an errand.
An errand? You mean a shopping errand?
I don't know. She just said an errand.
Did you say she wasn't upset or distressed or nervous?
No, she seemed all right.
Well, when you talked with the deceased on the phone, did she call you or did you call her?
I called her.
Why?
Because I was worried about her.
You mean because of the shock of her discovering that she had a brother and a mother and they were right here in town?
That's right.
But you were especially worried because you knew her medical history, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. The court has already determined that the medical record is not germane. Strike the question.
I told you, she sounded all right.
The witness will not answer questions that have already been stricken from the record. The clerk will disregard the witness's last statement.
What else was said in that last phone conversation, Doctor?
Objection, Your Honor. Haven't we gone on with this long enough?
The witness was the last person to talk with the deceased, the last person who can give us any indication of her frame of mind. I strongly urge you to let me continue.
Objection denied.
What else was said in that last conversation, Doctor?
Well, she wanted to know when I was coming home. I told her I had to go into surgery.
And what was her reaction to that?
She was disappointed. I made her promise not to go outside of the house until I came home. Then I told her I loved her.
You said, I love you.
Yes.
Because you were worried? And you wanted to reassure her?
Yes, because of that and because I loved her.
Let me read you from the prosecution's Exhibit A. A sworn statement made by the defendant covering his movements on the day of Ann Howard's death. I know how bad it sounds for me, but it's true. I followed Ann Howard to the Peyton house. Question, what time was that? Answer, I don't know. In the afternoon, late in the afternoon. Question, how long was she in the Peyton house? Answer, about 15 minutes. I was going to let off some steam at her for coming back here and ruining everything. But when she came out of the Peyton house, she was crying. She looked like if I'd even said a word to her, she'd get hysterical. Now that's where Ann Howard went after work before she went to your house, Dr. Rossi. That's what she referred to as her errand. She was so upset, so hysterically upset by that errand, that she couldn't even tell you about it. Not even you.
Objection, Your Honor. We're not interested in Mr. Cord's interpretation of the deceased's feelings.
Sustained.
Are you still convinced that Ann Howard was murdered?
Objection.
Sustained.
Your Honor.
Sustained.
Very well, Your Honor. When you learned of Ann Howard's death, didn't you honestly fear that she had committed suicide?
Objection, Your Honor. That calls for a conclusion on the part of the witness.
Your Honor, the witness is a doctor. He was very close to Ann Howard. Now, I submit that his conclusion in a hearing that is to determine whether a man is to be brought to trial for homicide is extremely relevant and necessary.
Very well.
Your Honor.
Objection overruled.
But, Your Honor.
Objection overruled, Mr. Fowler.
When you learned of Ann Howard's death, did you fear she committed suicide? Did you hear the question, Doctor?
I heard the question, Mr. Cord.
But will you please answer it?
Yes.
You said?
Yes, I was afraid. That was the first thought.
In her frame of mind and under the circumstances?
Your Honor, counsel is leading the witness.
I thought she had.
Leaped from Sailor's Bluff?
Your Honor, this is outrageous.
Mr. Cord, I must caution.
Sir, we are trying to get at the truth. Dr. Rossi, I will rephrase the question.
You don't have to rephrase the question, Mr. Cord. Yes. My first thought was that Ann Howard had leaped from Sailor's Bluff.
I didn't see you.
Hello, Rita. Come on in.
Well, are you expecting someone else? I can come back later.
Oh, it's perfectly all right. Mr. Carson isn't coming till later, and I love to have you visit.
Well, it's not exactly a visit. Well, I mean, it is. But I really came to ask you something.
Well, have a chocolate and ask away.
Oh, no thanks. My face still breaks out.
I shouldn't either, but I'm going to.
What I came about, I was wondering if you'd be needing somebody to help you with the baby when you go home from the hospital.
I will be needing some help, yes.
I'm very good with babies, honest.
Oh, I'm sure you are, Rita, but well, you already have a job. What about the drugstore?
Oh, Mr. Courtney wouldn't mind. See, business always falls off this time of year, and I could just take a leave of absence for a while.
It's nice of you to offer, Rita, but you know, Betty's been helping me out.
Oh, I know, but I was sort of thinking that when you go home from the hospital, you'll be weak. And I could take care of the baby and help around the house, too.
Have you talked to Norman about this?
Oh, no, I haven't, but I'm sure it'll be all right with him.
I want to be honest with you, Rita. Betty will probably help me after I get home, at least for a few days.
Oh, I understand. But I was thinking on a, longer time, more permanent basis. Temporarily, I mean.
I appreciate your coming over, but, I do think this is something you should discuss with Norman first.
All right, I will. It's nice seeing you. You know, Miss Carson, before I got married, I used to babysit all the time. I took care of Mrs. Reardon's last two practically single-handed. I just love babies.
I know you do, Rita.
Wow, they really gave you going over in there, didn't they? I'd forgotten how tough Stephen could be. Listen, can I talk to you for a minute?
Look, I'm all talked out, Rod.
Well, the judge is about to call recess. Maybe we could go somewhere.
Well, I have to go back to the hospital. I think we'd better talk here, huh?
Okay. Listen, what happened? What made you change your mind?
Look, I've already been through all that with Elliot.
You know, you were so convinced. You were convinced that Lee Weber killed Amber when you took the stand. And Fowler questioned you and Stephen. Did you find out something that made you change your mind?
I didn't change my mind, but...
That's what I want to know about. The but.
Look, I was just trying to tell the truth. The unadulterated truth. Without prejudice, without emotion. Have you forgotten how difficult that can be?
No, I haven't forgotten, but the facts were clear to you, to me, to a lot of people. Now, all of a sudden, what happened?
Look, a man's life is at stake here.
Do you know what keeps sticking in my head? You were preoccupied with the fact that Lee Weber murdered Ann Howard. Now you're beginning to sound a little bit like his lawyer. Why?
Why do you want to know?
Because I hate to see this guy get off when we know he's guilty because you suddenly feel protective towards him.
Rod, didn't you learn anything at your trial? I mean, you sat here in the courtroom, just down the hall, week after week after week, and you listened to the truth and the facts from one point of view or the other. Didn't you learn that they're not as clear, as absolute as they seem?
Let's talk about this courtroom and the defendant in this case, okay?
What do you want here, Rod? I mean, besides Lee Weber's head.
Fowler. Telephone. It's Deputy Knox.
Oh, thank you. Why aren't you out at the airport serving subpoenas on a robbery case?
I just finished, Mr. Fowler.
Then get back to your office and get to work.
I saw something here I thought you might want to know right away.
Oh, what's that?
I saw Mrs. Hannah Cord get on a plane to Boston.
Can you find out if she got a round-trip ticket?
Round trip? She bought a one-way ticket from here to Boston and from Boston to New York.
And, Norman, how about a couple of lovely aluminum mess kits? These are just dandy. They don't rust, and they're light as a feather.
Have a heart, Mr. Carson. I figure with all this stuff, I owe you a week's work already.
Well, your credit's good with me, Norman. You can camp now and pay later.
No, thanks.
Hi, Mr. Carson.
Hi, Rita.
No, I'm here, the keys. Rod said the car's all checked out and everything's all right.
Great.
Hey, what's all this stuff?
Our appliances.
What?
Our appliances, lady. And these are our accommodations. A luxurious room for two, with an excellent view of the surrounding terrain, and featuring cross-current ventilation.
Army surplus. Mm-hmm. What's that?
You guessed it, lady. This is where our meals will be prepared. And I understand they have a magnificent cuisine of the latest in gourmet delicacies.
I don't think you can cook anything on that except maybe to heat up a can of pork and beans.
Well, nothing tastes better when you've been walking out in the woods. Gee, I envy you going camping. Say, why don't you take another day? You know, if you left Friday, you wouldn't have to wait for the weekend.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I don't think you can, though, Norm.
Oh, that's right. The court appearance. Mr. Fowler said he'd have to see me in a couple of days.
Well, it's too bad. The woods are really something this time of year.
Where'd you park the car?
Right out in front.
Well, you don't.
Rita? Two aluminum mess kits on the house.
Hey, thanks, Mr. Carson. Bye. Hey, Norm, I saw Miss Carson today at the hospital.
Yeah, how is she?
Great, she's out of bed. She's still pretty wobbly, though.
Yeah, I guess she would be.
You know, she's really going to need somebody to help her when she comes home with the baby.
Yep.
She asked me to talk to you about it.
What? She asked you to ask me about what?
About whether I could help her with the baby.
Wait a minute, slow down. You lost me somewhere. What do you mean?
Well, you know, I'm good with babies, and she's going to need some help, and so we were just sort of, well, you know, talking about it.
Wait a minute. You went to the hospital today to see Mrs. Carson, and she asked you to take care of the baby when she gets home?
Yeah, of course I wanted to check with you about it first.
Rita, it's no good.
Why? What's the harm?
We've been through all this before. If you start to play around with that baby, it's going to throw all of our plans right out the window. Come on, I'll take you for a drive. Rita! My little Rita! My little chickadee! My little prairie flower! Now, come on, let's get in the car, let's go for a little drive. Drive down the avenue of happiness. A little check time, have a little steak. Hey, beautiful, I want to talk to you about that. You and me, I'm going to go out and we'll talk things over very quietly. Marvin, Rita! There. Rita, look, we're still too young, aren't we? Look, in 10 years, we're going to be surrounded by kids. Surrounded by them. Then it's going to really be a drag.
Yeah, sure.
I'll tell you what let's do. Let's go out to dinner tonight.
You know we can't afford it.
Yes, we can. Oh, yes, we can. We'll take our little cooking stuff and we'll test it out. We'll pour in a little can of beans, a little stuff like that, and then we'll get out on the porch, right on the porch, see? Then we take it out there and cook it all, and everything works out great. Right on the porch. What do you say? Do you want it? Huh?
Okay.
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 Okay.